well, what is employee advocacy, and also why aren't people using it?
If you can get your employees involved in sharing your company's message, you have extraordinary opportunity to reach audiences that may otherwise be outside of your marketing focus altogether.
Hey everybody, Reggie here with Vista Social's Beyond Social podcast. I've got Vitaly here, and today we've got a really interesting topic we're going to cover. It's about employee advocacy. It's one of the most underutilized and underappreciated marketing strategies, marketing resources. It's available to every company, so I'm excited to dive in to understand a little bit about, well, what is employee advocacy, and also why aren't people using it? So can we start with that?
Sure. So I think in principle, advocacy is really simple. It's an employee, somebody who works at the company, promoting the company's message or the company itself or the company's products. And that's it. That's very simple in principle. And in many ways, this is not anything new. I think that's been kind of happening in the way of, let's say, your employee wearing a T-shirt with your company name, having a mug with your company name, I don't know, putting a sticker of your company name on their car. That's all advocacy, right? Promoting your brand's message, product, name. I think in the world of social media, the opportunities are that much greater than simply wearing a T-shirt, let's say, because your employees, they have followers, and those employees, they have engagement, and they have people who pay attention to what they say. And if you can convince your employees, if you can get your employees involved in sharing your company's message, you have extraordinary opportunity to reach audiences that may otherwise be outside of your marketing focus altogether.
So the interesting concept here is that it sounds like we're already advocates, right? I mean, you mentioned that Vista Social, I wear a Vista Social polo sometimes when I'm doing demos or talking to customers. If I'm being honest, sometimes I go to the grocery store and I'm wearing the Vista Social shirt. So it sounds like, for the most part, companies already have advocates in their employees.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think perhaps there is a bit of a reluctancy to kind of formalize the process. It's one thing to give your employees merch and have them wear it, and it's another to ask them to, or to convince them to share a message about a product, which is almost maybe advertising or promoting your company. So perhaps companies and brands are somewhat uncomfortable with that transition to something very voluntary, something very light touch, versus something a bit more heavy-handed where employee actually posts a message about a particular product or something like that. Perhaps they are unsure about what the employees would think of the ask itself. Would they find it appropriate? Would they find it overreaching? Maybe in certain areas of the world or this country, there is some legal boundaries to what employees can insist upon. But frankly, insisting is not what this is about. Like, you are not insisting that your employee wears a T-shirt. Employees gladly wear T-shirts, just like they gladly wear T-shirts of their favorite sport teams or rock bands. People just love associating with things they enjoy. And I'm assuming employees generally love where they work. So that's obviously, it's hard to make somebody an advocate who just hates their job. So let's kind of assume for the moment the majority of people love their workspaces. And if not, this will be yet another reason to alter the culture in a way that makes people just enjoy where they spend 8 hours every day, 5 days a week. So yeah, to answer your question, employee advocacy is already kind of going on, perhaps, except it's not oftentimes formalized, and it's not really deployed in a way that's meaningful and impactful.
Yeah, it's almost, it's hard to measure the impact of me wearing a shirt at the grocery store, right? But when we talk about employee advocacy going digital and being able to utilize social, helps you to capture, and we'll talk about this, right? But understanding what's my ROI on something like this, right? What's the reach that we're talking about? And then it seems like there's a couple of challenges with company culture being one. Can we talk a little bit about what some other challenges would be around getting something like this up and running?
I think the challenge is major challenges in convincing your employees to participate. Would be hard to make somebody an advocate if it's a mandatory task. So for as long as efforts are made to kind of get people that work at the company to both love the environment, which is slightly more fundamental than even advocacy. So obviously advocacy in a dysfunctional organization is not going to lead to anything. So obviously evaluating that aspect of the environment is important. But logistics would only be challenging getting people to do advocacy and to be advocates of the message consistently. And we should also sort of maybe define what does advocacy mean, and specifically, like we said, that the T-shirt wearing is advocacy, and we all understand what that's about. So what is advocacy in the social media space? At a minimum, this is your employee and sharing a message on their social profiles, like on LinkedIn profile, on their Facebook, about your company. It could be also your employee liking a post by your company. It could also be your employee commenting on the post by your company. It could also be resharing. Obviously, like resharing and posting content on the network is very direct, very powerful. Liking and commenting is also quite valuable because it informs the algorithm. So yes, in the case of sharing, their followers will see the message and obviously be influenced. But in the case of them liking, their followers will eventually be influenced by that like as well. Oh, your friend liked something, you must like that too. And, the algorithms will sooner or later start pushing your company's content into the followers' boxes, feeds rather. So that is the modern day social media infused advocacy. And measuring that is a lot easier than some offline T-shirt wearing, sticker posting options, because in many ways you can easily calculate your ROI by looking how many employees have posted, how many followers do they have, and you can look at the engagement metrics around those posts. And you can then compare that against what your other marketing initiatives are driving for you on the paid side, on the organic side. So measuring advocacy actually is quite simple. It's getting it off and running more around not even the tool set. There are plenty of tools on the market that kind of do advocacy. In Vista Social, we have advocacy features too. But it's convincing the people to share your message.
Yeah, so the engagement, the adoption itself, beyond culturally, it's maybe gamification. There's certain ways that you could do policies, procedures within the company where you incentivize this sharing, right? Where it's a gift card at the end of the month to the top of the leaderboard or something in that nature as well. But I think it makes a lot of sense that you're able to compare and understand. You've got 50 employees, 100 employees, each of them. You do the math, 100, 200 followers each. Obviously, that's on the low end compared to the value of maybe running ads, right? Your cost per 1,000 impressions, you're doing 1 million impressions, 2 million impressions. The bill can run up pretty quickly. Whereas a tool, something like Vista Social, you're going to see your ROI in the dashboard really quickly by getting your employees involved.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of points that I want to kind of comment on in your reply there. So first of all, the playbook for convincing your employees to participate could differ from company to company. Incentivizing it with perhaps gift cards and whatnot is certainly an option. It may very well work for many brands. That is not necessarily the out of the gate sort of strategy to get employees to share your message. Going back to the cultural aspect of it, so I know that within Vista Social, when our marketing team asks us to engage with some of the content that they've just created, from what I observe, People do that gladly. People do that voluntarily because the content is interesting. They believe in the company. They like everybody on the team. There is like I'm even observing a bit of a competition. Who's done better? Who's done it first? Who's done the most likes? So the gamification and maybe tracking who are your um, most determined, right, advocates. That's important, and a better advocacy system would make that very transparent, which users are really top, participants and contribute the most to the space. Incentivizing that is really tricky. Again, it would almost feel like pay to play, kind of like you paying people for the ads. The organic nature of it to me is quite intriguing because it would come in some ways from the person's heart, and be just as that much more impactful, and meaningful to them.
Yeah. So the core of it, I mean, keeps going back to the culture, right? When an employee is happy, they love the environment they're working at, they're gladly going to share stuff on their LinkedIn, and like you said, it's not just resharing a post, but it's liking on it. Sometimes I come across new authors on LinkedIn from things that you've liked. It'll say Vitaly has liked this, and then I'm like, wow, I found value in that post. Now I'm following that person. So there's so much value across the board in 360 almost in versions.
Absolutely, and also remember that the network of people that your employees are part of, right? Particularly professional networks like LinkedIn are quite interesting to the business, to the brand itself, right? The amount of ICP, kind of like an ideal customer profiles within that space may or may not be significant simply because, listen, if your people are, let's say, developers, programmers, and they know a lot of other programmers, but you have a product like Vista Social that sells to marketers. So arguably you would say that that's not your ideal customer right there. But it's the propagation, right? So it's that tier of followers followed by their networks, but it's the same professional network, right? It's the same professional people who are then going to share. So the type of people who you're going to reach it could be kind of viewed as slightly outside of your ICP, but perhaps in a more strategic way, right? You are going to get that much more presence and that much more influence by sort of through that kind of spread of information. And again, the organic nature of the author of the message, it's an employee, it's not a company, get that much more believability and that much more kind of interest versus something that your company would produce on its own. And also in here, we should point out that the company, the message itself would be suggested by the company. So let's say we've launched a feature within the system, say Instagram threads are now available for direct publishing. So now let's say social media managers can schedule threads. But that's not how your employee could phrase it to the audience. And again, a better advocacy system would offer ready-to-go templates for your employee to make a very personal message about it, right? So that it does not come across. So again, this is now kind of coming back to the playbook and to the execution of the advocacy. Obviously, you want to get creative. Obviously, you want to be personal in your messaging, not overly sort of robotic. You don't want to be viewing your employees' shares as your messaging to their followers, right? It needs to be their messaging. So some encouragement of that needs to happen as well.
Yeah. I mean, optionally, maybe opening it up for customization, right? The company's core messaging is there, maybe giving the employees the ability to tweak the messaging so that it's a little bit better to the audience that they have, right? So that's...
Yeah, and the success of such program would really depend on companies' ability to, with the help of a proper tool, to keep advocates, employees interested in participating. So you can invite as many employees as you like. They'll all get invites. And chances are they could even confirm it, right? And chances are the system would send them notification every time you got a message for them to share. But how do you get them to actually do it on a daily basis? So this is now a combination of your efforts, like a company's efforts to foster that degree of action from the user. But also, again, a better platform will do a great job at reminding users, hey, these are some of the posts you can share, making it easier. Maybe it's just a single click. Your company has this post. Would you like to just automatically share it to your feed? Sending out templates. Hey, this is the post. Here are a few options for you, right? Of what you can now say, making it easier for them to really get the message out. So it's the adoption of the process that's going to make or break a platform, an advocacy program, because it's not something people get paid to do. So they need to be interested. So keeping them interested is going to be a bit of a, I guess, trick here. And we offer quite a bit of guidance on that as well. We got playbooks for advocacy, so you can certainly consider some of the tips that we offer on the subject. But generally speaking, it is a no-brainer activity that every brand in the world needs to be in. So, and it's quite remarkable how everybody kind of views social media management as a necessary game. Post content to social, promote it, boost it, run ads, get all that, right? So, but very few companies really have invested effort in employee advocacy programs.
Yeah, and maybe this one's going a little bit beyond the scope, or at least the scope of this conversation, but the whole concept and notion of having your employees invested as thought leaders in the space, and how that could have meaningful ramifications for the brand in itself. An advocacy program could, in essence, also go beyond just sharing a company. I've had a couple of conversations so far with brands that are utilizing employee advocacy as a way to provide valuable posts for their employees to help position them as thought leaders in the space, right? So that when there is that brand shared content, hits a little bit differently because I am that thought leader on LinkedIn or on Facebook or things like that.
Absolutely. And this is going back to how do you keep your employees interested in participating and getting them to sort of understand the value to their professional profiles that these posts represent. Is certainly going to be compelling to them too. Obviously, again, I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here. So the trick is in the copy. If you are targeting your messaging inadvertently, but you are trying to pitch it as a professional growth of an employee, the messages need to be phrased that way, right? And listen, we use AI, and we can generate samples of data for that purpose or for this purpose. So, but content and copy is going to be quite key here. So, right. So, and that's fine. I think some companies, depending, I guess, on maybe the industry, say it's a real estate business. Obviously, each real estate person wants following of their own. Let's say it's a corporation. Every person wants to grow as a leader in a particular industry or in a particular profession. I think that's a very fine objective. Probably will take just a little bit more effort. But remember that the end game is that your message, your core company message, gets amplified. And mind you that the effort is there to maybe get it up and running, develop some processes, develop some maybe email drips to your customer, to your employees, to kind of do this on a regular basis, find ways to entice them, to incentivize them. But once it's rolling, it's literally free marketing. So nothing else you do will be free. Like your organic marketing is going to cost you, your paid marketing is going to cost you. This will not cost you. So, and that's and I guess you started the conversation by saying that many companies don't utilize it. That is indeed the case, right? So people are utilizing all sorts of marketing channels, and this does not happen to be one of them. Whether you are a brand that doesn't do it, or whether you are an agency who doesn't offer that as a service to their customers. So whatever the case may be, it's really not happening that much, that often for companies.
Yeah, so I guess to close out, maybe someone's listening in and they're like, okay, I want to give it a try. Beyond asking them, hey, try out Vista Social's employee advocacy, try out our trial, right? What are some maybe 2 or 3 practical tips that you'd want to pass along as like, you're going to get started, keep these 2 or 3 things in mind and you should be good well on your way?
From the tooling, from the tool you use perspective, I would say that any tool that combines the social media management and advocacy in one tool is going to be a better play for an organization because you don't have to do the work twice. You schedule the content and automatically that content could be part of your advocacy. So that just makes the process even simpler. So it takes no extra step to get your advocacy going. It just becomes part of your regular social media content strategy. And so simplifying that for you, any tool that also does offer features around fostering participation for advocates, reminders, daily digests, notifications of content, some really interesting leaderboard type reports, letting people know who is like the best person at this, gamifying, as you put it, right? That is a great feature of the tool. So from the tooling, I'll be looking for those two kind of couple of things. Goes without saying that you want something affordable here because it's not something that should break the bank for any company. And on the strategy side, again, just to reiterate, it's the fostering of participation. It's finding ways to kind of get your employees to love what they do and love the company and be willing to do this. And it's unfortunately cannot be directive. Well, not fortunately, it's the reality. It cannot be directive passed from top to bottom, like, hey guys, girls, and you gotta share this message. That will not work. As a matter of fact, that may backfire. Last thing you want is some dark web, chatter of how crazy you are. So finding really cool, appropriate ways to implement the proper culture within the company and to turn that into willingness and ability to kind of share content. I think between those two couple of things, any company can get this rolling in a matter of days, if not hours sometimes.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Vitaly, for the time chatting here today. For you guys listening in, whether you're watching on YouTube, Spotify, make sure you share this around. If you have suggestions on other topics you'd like us to cover, make sure that you reach out to us. vistasocial.com/beyondsocial podcast. You'll be able to find us there. And yeah, we'll see you next Wednesday.